Check. I'm your host, Rachel Meadle, joined as always by Chris Bouguet. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Rachel. How's it going?
Whoa, what's going on over there?
Oh, I'm lifting. I'm doing some weightlifting.
Wow.
See, I got my kettlebell here, pumping some iron. Oh, summertime, got to get that bod in shape for the beach.
Yeah, beach bod. From dad bod to beach bod.
Notice how the tone of my voice gets deeper when you lift? Ugh.
What's going on over there?
So I'm lifting because I feel like some of the stuff we're going to talk about today in the episode is all about like strengthening parts of your body. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, actually. You're exactly right. We are talking today about hearing, which I'm really excited about because we don't always talk about hearing.
Hearing is one of those things, Rachel, that, back in my bachelor days, when so not when I was single, but like back in school when I was getting my bachelor's degree.
I know. I was like, you need to clarify what bachelor days are you talking about?
I got my degree. It was actually called a teacher of the speech and hearing impaired was the actual degree that I got. And I learned all about hearing. But now that I work in a school district, of course, I look at stuff, but I don't do audiology. We have audiologists that we work with, but they mostly handle all that stuff. In fact, I don't even think our speech therapists do the hearing screenings anymore. We used to do those hearing screenings. I think that has moved on to nurses. So hearing is one of those things that I'm not as versed in recently as I used to be. How about you?
I would agree. I feel like the further I get away from graduate school, the more I forget about all the things that I learned in regards to hearing. Like I would not feel comfortable with an audiometer trying to do a hearing screening. I mean, I know enough to know when I should refer out to an audiologist for hearing, but it's something I thought about actually because, we're talking with Chris Ellis. He is the co-founder of Audio Cardio, which is this really cool app that can actually improve your threshold levels. And as we kind of, talked about hearing, and I then actually tried the app out for 30 days, I was thinking to myself, wow, because I was looking at all the different frequency levels. And I thought to myself, wow, I really don't remember everything I learned about hearing and hearing impairment and, all these things in graduate school. So it's definitely something where I feel like I've lost some of that knowledge.
Yeah, me too. And maybe that's okay. You can't be an expert in everything and you rely on your colleagues to fill in those spots, Let's talk about hearing in relation to AAC for a second. So, do you look at hearing when you do an AAC evaluation or when you're considering AAC?
Well, so I think I always ask the question, is there any, hearing impairment? And I always ask the last time hearing was checked, especially if I'm working with a younger child who is not speaking. I don't assess hearing more than that. I just kind of do a screening. Actually, I have a really interesting case that I worked on. It was a child who had cochlear implants and had autism. So it was really an interesting case because everything that I did when I approached AAC was from a completely different lens at that point. He also was getting, auditory therapy because he had just had his implants. And so there was like this I don't want to say clash, but some disagreements with the approach because yes, we were trying to strengthen his hearing, but from my side, I was trying to give him functional communication. So I really wanted to support those visuals and support his ability to use the device. And so, I had to work closely with the auditory therapist. And that was an interesting experience. And she was like, I've never worked with a student with autism before. So, it was kind of a learning curve for both of us, but we ended up working really closely on the case and he made a lot of progress and he picked it up very quickly because he had those visuals finally in order to communicate. Like he was so fast with that device. It was like magic watching him use it. And it was just so fun as a therapist because every time I would go see him, I would just teach him something new and then, he's got it. he was able to communicate. He loved Mr. Potato Head. I loved like bringing it out because he would get so excited to play with Mr. Potato Head, and we'd talk about the body parts, and you'd make Potato Head go and fly and jump and do all these things. So it was fun working with him. But yeah, it was an interesting case.
So do you get the impression that maybe he was one of those students that used it temporarily, or do you feel like he, continues to use it? What do you think the long-term outcome was for him?
I mean, I definitely think it started, first of all, it showed everyone on the team how much he's capable of, right? So I think that because he was not speaking, really, he had, obviously a diagnosed hearing impairment, and then he got the cochlear implants. We were finally able to see what he, had to say. And so now kind of the task was, we have to teach him the language, right? We have to teach him the meaning of these words and how to use them. Because up until then, he was just using a lot of gestures. He was kind of grabbing the things that he wanted. He was very independent. So it made communicating a little bit more challenging because he was self-sufficient. Like if he wanted something, he would go get it. And so, working closely with the family to try to figure out ways that we can embed language opportunities into his daily routines. But yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not still working with the student, but I think he's probably still using the AAC system, if I can guess. He wasn't really doing a lot of verbal approximations, and that's hard to say too because he just, had brand new cochlear implants. So, yeah, I think he's probably still using the system. I would hope so, because he was severely language delayed. He was, I think, 6 or 7, when I started working with him, and like we were kind of starting from the ground up. Like he had a few signs and that was it. And so we had to really work to get him understanding, core words and, how to put core words into, phrases and sentences and things like that. So I'm guessing that he's still using the device, but I'm not sure.
Now, I know an issue we've had in the past with iPads in particular is that the speakers are not necessarily loud enough for all environments that the student might be going into. So, for instance, like the cafeteria, it's really hard to hear the iPad no matter how loud you make it. If you go outside sometimes and there's wind or there's kids on the playground, it's hard to hear the iPad. In the hallways when there's a lot of ambient noise. And so we've done things where we've paired it to a Bluetooth speaker, and so that and the student would wear that Bluetooth speaker either like around their, like on a lanyard or on their belt buckle, like with a carabiner. We've also done stuff where we've paired it with a Bluetooth speaker for the classroom, so that, it's closer to the teacher or wherever, a better spot in the room, so that the sound could be heard more. But I know that's an issue, and it's one of the pros when you're looking at the feature matching process going, okay, what does the sound output need to be in all environments? Do we need to be looking at an external speaker? Do we need to be looking at a case that has a speaker? Of course, that has a downside too, because usually a case with a speaker means it's heavier and it's an extra thing you have to charge. And so those are all considerations that they're important considerations when you're trying to figure out what would be the right tool or tools to use. Certainly the Bluetooth speakers that you didn't always have to have them. You could unpair it, and then you could just use the iPad speaker when you needed to, and then you could pair it when you needed it to, which added a whole nother operational skill that we had to practice and learn, not just for the student, but the paraprofessionals, the teachers, a lot of them were not familiar with Bluetooth, what I mean? So, but that's becoming more and more commonplace, but still.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, this is a little bit unrelated, but something that I've been encountering via telepractice is when I share my screen, if I'm sharing a video, for example, it's always hard to get the levels right. And a lot of my kids are wearing headphones, and a lot of these kids have autism. And so, I've had to really teach my kids to self-advocate and understand what the volume is. Like, is the volume good? Do you need to turn it down or need to turn it up? Because a lot of the kids that I work with have very sensitive hearing, and they are very sensitive to loud sounds. So anyway, that's been a really interesting element to my telepractice is, preparing my students in advance. I'm going to share a video. You have to tell me if the volume, I typically start now. I know better. I start now with the volume really low, and then we gradually keep going up and up until it's a good volume. But yeah, just teaching my kids to self-advocate for that because, either the volume was non-existent. Like I've been in sessions, and like the mom comes over and she's like, he can't hear the video. I'm like, oh, well, that seems important considering we've been watching it for the last 10 minutes. So anyway, it's just an interesting operational skill, like you mentioned, Chris, teaching kids how to understand volume, turning the volume up and then turning it down if they need it. Either one way or the other is such an important skill, not only during the telepractice sessions, but also with their device. Because, we go into a library and kids, oftentimes, like the paraprofessionals will turn the device down because it's super loud in a, very quiet setting like a library. And then they go out to recess and they're trying to communicate with their device and no one can hear it because the volume was turned down. So really making kids a part of that process. It's a teaching moment when we don't ever want to just take the device and plug it in because it's about to die or turn the volume up without explaining to a student why we're doing those things and help them be a part of that process so that they're able to really take ownership over their device and become more independent and autonomous users of that device.
I think something that helps, or that as a strategy we've used in the past, is that there are certain applications that allow you to numerically see the volume. So there might be some that just like it's a bar and you don't really know how much louder or quieter you are. And then there's others, if you can picture like a TV, right? Some just have a bar and you're getting louder and you're getting quieter, but others have a number and you're like, you're at 85, 86, 87. All right, keep it around 30. That's where we like it in our family, And there's certain apps that do that. In fact, a little behind the scenes here is that we record using Audacity as sort of a backup. So we record in Zoom, but we also have Audacity running. And Audacity does have this sort of modulator that you can visually see, so you could know what the volume is and you can make adjustments there. And so I feel like that number really helps students. They could say, I'm a 33 right now, Miss Rachel. I need it at 33, where, depending on whatever the other variables might be, they might need it there's the painters are in the background today and I need it at a 65. You know what I mean? Having some sort of number, I feel, helps one, kids know, and then two, be able to express it,
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're exactly right. The more salient we can make these things for kids, the more concrete, I think the better. So I think attaching a numerical value makes a lot of sense. I also think just visually seeing it makes a lot of sense. When you see it like full bar, it's like, okay, full blast. There's lots of really interesting ways that you can teach kids about volume. But one of the best ways is to just show them a video or play a song and make it like super, super quiet so like they can't hear it. Something they're really excited about. And, they're motivated to say, turn it up. Like, I can't hear it. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll turn like really like music that I don't think a kid will like. I'll turn that up really loud. And they'll be like so annoyed, like, oh my God, stop. And I'm like, oh, should I turn it down? So there's lots of different interesting ways that you can teach that skill, but it's an important skill that kids need to learn.
So, something that's always kind of fascinating me about this, and I'd love to dig in. Again, if people have comments, please leave them over on the Facebook page because I need to learn more about it. It's always intriguing to me that most devices have a volume button, but that's only one aspect of noise. I mean, there's my voice, and then there's your voice. And is there a way that you could adjust the pitch on different devices so that if the high pitch is somehow affecting your sensory system, or the low pitch is affecting your sensory system, you could make those adjustments if you needed to. Now, I know sometimes that makes it sound like more like a squirrel. You know what I mean? It's certainly, or changing the speed can make it more high pitched and things like that. But I wonder if that's something that we could be looking into in the future as a way to adjust the pitch on devices as well. So just so that it's more appealing to somebody. Just like you might choose your font, or could you choose the pitch that you want to listen to a particular thing in?
Well, and kind of in the same respect, I oftentimes will encourage kids to choose the voice. I think that kids should be a part of the process of choosing the voice. I have some kids who, like, there's some on some of the devices, they have like silly voices and like a superhero voice or like a bad guy voice. And so, some of my kids, I'll ask them like, okay, like what voice should we have today? Like, do you want the bad guy voice? Do you want the monster voice? And so it's just a really fun way to get kids, communicating and exploring, right? Exploring what their voice is, what it sounds like, knowing that it can change and it can be a fun experience. So I do that oftentimes with my kids in my practice because they really like it. They're like, oh, like I want to do the bad guy voice today. And then everything that they say is so funny because, it comes out sounding, like a bad guy.
I think most people are very familiar with some sort of photo filters, where you can put the AR over you. And I think we've done it before where we turned you into, because Speech Blubs had it, right? Where you can put the AR over you and you turned yourself into, what was it, a bunny or something? I can't remember. A bear? No, what were you?
Yeah, what was I? I forget. A monkey?
Monkey, yeah,
monkey.
It was a monkey.
It was a monkey, yeah.
That's what it was. And people are familiar with that from Snapchat filters and Instagram filters and things. Well, that's all a visual way of making it fun and engaging. But what I'm hearing you talk about is it's an auditory way, right? It's changing the voice can make it fun and engaging.
And sometimes I'll do it with my own device too. So sometimes we'll leave the student's device, as it normally is, but like I'll change my voice. So like my voice will be like a British woman or like the Australian English. So there's lots of different fun ways that you can play around with it with kids and they get excited. Anything that's new and novel, like kids get excited to talk about, and it's an opportunity. So I would definitely encourage you to play around with that with your kids in your practice because it's really fun.
So I'm going to do some crunches here while we're getting ready for the interview. Let me ask you, Rachel, when we talk about hearing, we often talk about hearing loss. But this interview, I believe it's about hearing gain, like making progress, like just like I'm going to with these ripped abs that I have.
Exactly.
You can make gains with your hearing through exercises. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So this app is really cool. And as I had mentioned, I did it for 30 days and noticed a lot of improvement in my threshold. So you take a baseline assessment. When you first start, you have to use kind of headphones. And we talk more in depth about it in the interview, but it's basically like a set of very subtle sounds that you can actually listen to music on top of it. So you don't even notice it. But I noticed as I kept listening, and I would do it for an hour a day, it would just put my headphones in as I was like checking email or whatever I was doing in the morning and didn't even notice, like just hit start and didn't, think about it anymore. But then over time, what I realized is that it's kind of like a buzzing almost. It was getting louder and louder. And so then what you have to do is you have to go back in and take the test, and you realize like, wow, I need to change my thresholds are changing. And so it's a really, really cool idea. It's a cool app, and they're doing a lot of research now. They're working with Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. This company is really, innovative, and not only, can you improve your thresholds, but it's also a preventative measure. So it's something that you can do to take care of your hearing, to ensure that you continue to have, really good threshold sensitivity with the various frequencies, because we all know over time we lose that sensitivity, all of us, in our hearing. And so being able to do something that's proactive is really cool and such a great idea. I met Chris actually at a networking event. It was all around hearing and hearing and technology. And so I tend to do a lot of tech events in LA because I'm really interested in technology, obviously. And I saw his presentation. I was like, this is so cool. Like, I have to talk to you more about this. And then I figured, why don't we just have this conversation on the podcast? Because I think a lot of people would benefit from listening to this and checking this app out. So Audio Cardio was nice enough to give all of our Talking with Tech listeners a 30-day free trial of their app. You go to audiocardio.com and then put the promotional code in AAC3XS. And that promotional code, again, will give you 30 days to try the app out. I only did it for 30 days and I noticed a huge improvement. I was actually kind of shocked. At first, I was a little skeptical. I was like, I don't know, feels like my hearing's probably fine. But I was just really amazed. Every time I had to actually change the, for thresholds, and I had to kind of do another baseline test. It was really cool to see my progress over time after I was, working out my hearing so well.
701. 702. Sorry, Rachel, I started to lose count there, but I think that's where I left off when you were talking. So without further ado, let's hear Rachel's interview with Chris Ellis from Audio Cardio.
People all over the world need augmentative and alternative communication. Despite the global need, some areas of the world don't have access to the same resources as others. Low-tech AAC can be a functional, cost-effective way to bring communication to more people universally.
Low-tech tools are also used widely by high-tech AAC users to have a backup or alternative means to communicate. These low-tech tools often get torn, crushed, crumpled, soaked, or otherwise destroyed easily. They aren't often made with durability in mind.
Enter Pixie, a durable low-tech solution. Place printed symbols in transparent plastic containers called Pixie snaps, which fit snugly into a portable carrying case. Each case allows for 3 double-sided Pixie snaps, giving people 6 surfaces to interact with. The carrying case acts like a book, allowing a user to flip between multiple pages of symbols.
This innovative design makes Pixie the perfect portable, customizable, and splash-proof low-tech solution. You can check it out for yourself by following @PixiePal on Facebook. But that's not all. PixiePal has partnered with some amazing organizations, such as the Nika Project, the Kaizora Center, OIC Cambodia, and many more to help bring functional and affordable AAC to anyone in the world. PixiePal has been a UNICEF Champions of Children supporter since 2019. The first generation of PixiePal is blue, in tribute of UNICEF's work worldwide. A PixiePal crowdfunding campaign has already launched. You can follow, comment, and share the initiative by going to PixiePal.com. That's PICSEEPAL.com. That's pick like picture, see like with your eyes, and pal like a friend. Send them a direct message and register your interest for one of the first Pixie Pals ever made.
Each time a Pixie Pal is purchased, another Pixie Pal will be donated to one of these trusted partners. The goal is to donate 1 million Pixie Pals worldwide. To join us in being part of this global movement, go to facebook.com/PixiePal and hit the follow button to help bring AAC to everyone in the world who needs it. Welcome to Talking with Tech. I'm your host, Rachel Madel, joined today by Chris Ellis. Chris is a CEO and co-founder of an app called Audio Cardio. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Great. Thank you for having me today, Rachel. Excited to be on.
Yeah. So just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into app development.
Yeah, it was natural for me. I was actually born and raised in Silicon Valley, so that was the industry, or is the industry in the Bay Area. So growing up around that, I always knew I was going to be involved in startups. And after being a part of several before this, my co-founder and I were actually introduced through a mutual contact, and I had some personal things going on in my life that were related to hearing in my family. That also led to other things. However, the timing was perfect. And when I was introduced to my co-founder, it was just very obvious for me that this was going to be the work that I wanted to do. And so we co-founded Audio Cardio together.
So let's deep dive into Audio Cardio, because I actually, right before we hopped on, I was exploring it. It's such a cool app. So can you just tell everyone what it is and why it's important?
Yeah, so Audio Cardio is a mobile app that is designed to both protect and actually strengthen your hearing. And it's an incredibly important sense, of course, hearing in general, but it's a massive problem. The amount of people that have disabling hearing loss, the problem is growing right now. With you've got headphones on, I've got headphones on right now. These things, noise is being piped right into our auditory system, and it's like never before. And the environment's just getting louder, and our body hasn't been able to adapt as quickly as the technology that's being pushed out into the world. And so and there's a lot of secondary physical and mental and even economic issues that are associated with hearing loss, and even untreated, and more so untreated hearing loss. And so, it's a massive problem, and it's something that, we're hoping to tackle with new and innovative technology.
So let's kind of deep dive into the technology, because I'm really fascinated by this and the work that you guys are doing, and the clinical research that you guys are doing. You've partnered with a lot of different organizations, correct?
Correct. So we've done several clinical trials, preclinical trials, including one with Stanford University, and Palo Alto Medical Foundation, which is actually now Sutter Health. But we did a double-blind study there, providing our sound therapy and what audio. So I should probably start a little bit and give an idea of exactly what it is. It is a mobile app, but basically what it does is it will, in fact, allow you to use regular headphones and do a self-assessment of your hearing, or a screening, if you will. And based off of that assessment, we will generate a inaudible or barely audible sound that will stimulate the cells inside the ear. And our goal is to exercise these cells, or help promote and support these neural pathways that allow the signal to, when it comes out as a sound wave out of my mouth into, of course, your ear and into your brain. That neural pathway needs to have a strong and open connection, and that's basically what we're doing with our sound therapy.
So I was just exploring the app. I did the self-assessment. It was really straightforward. And then the sound therapy you guys recommend is once a day for 60 minutes, correct?
That's correct. And so the assessment only has to be done once in a while, meaning maybe once a week, or actually when the sound therapy becomes louder and more easily noticeable. It's your cue to go ahead and reassess your hearing, because we always want to have our sound therapy right at your threshold of sound. So where you can barely recognize it, and when you're focused on other things, you shouldn't recognize it at all. If you're doing email or listening to music or just doing other things, it shouldn't be easily recognizable. And so it's once a day for 1 hour. So, you assess your hearing the first time each morning, or whatever it is you're doing the sound therapy with, you just press start therapy and you just listen to that for an hour a day.
And that's the cool thing to me, is that it's not this like extra thing we have to like add to our schedule. We all listen to podcasts, music, we have our earbuds in a lot of our day. And so it's just, you can use this in conjunction with the things that you're already doing, correct?
Absolutely. And, it's compliance is always hard and difficult when you're trying to get someone to do something new, especially if it's something that's like, very active and engaging. Whereas this is very passive, and our technology is actually called threshold sound conditioning, because you don't have to actively engage with it. And so while you listen to music, while you do other things, you simply just allow these inaudible or barely audible tones to play. And over time, you'll be able to recognize them better. And we want to keep doing this over and over again to drive your threshold of sound down. That's the goal, at least.
I love that. So now that hopefully everyone gets a sense of what the app is and how to use it, let's talk a little bit about the clinical work that you guys have done in researching it.
Yeah, so my co-founder is a musicologist. So he's actually an award-winning music composer first, when he was growing up, and then also studied, systematic musicology, as well as cognitive acoustics at UCLA, where he was in his PhD program. He's since left the program to start audio cardio with me. But we've done clinical trials with Samsung Medical Center in Korea, Nanjing University in China, Chungan University in Korea, as well as the one I mentioned with Stanford and Palo Alto Medical Foundation. But over 70% of the people that went through those trials had a change in their hearing by 10 decibels or more within 2 weeks. Others continued to see progress. Our data shows the same type of efficacy and results when there is compliance and adherence once a day for 1 hour for a minimum of 14 days. We are getting those types of results for the frequencies that we target with our mobile app and sound therapy.
I love that. I mean, it's a reasonably easy thing to incorporate into your routine. And it's amazing that you're improving hearing with a simple app. I mean, like when I first met you, which I guess we'll give the backstory, it was at an event that you spoke at. We're both based in Los Angeles, and I was I was like, I have to talk to this guy. Like, what? He's like basically like reversing hearing loss. Like, that feels crazy to me. Of course, given the nature that I'm a speech language pathologist and part of my master's degree has hearing in the title, I was really excited to talk with you and explore your app. And since I've had a chance to take a look at it, I haven't been using it regularly, although I have to tell you, after we get off of this interview, I'm going to do my sound therapy for the day, and I'm going to commit to it for the next month to see if I see any improvements. But I'm really excited because it's something that's really accessible and really pretty straightforward for people to do.
Yeah, and I mean that was the entire goal, right? Is to find, so hearing loss is the overarching problem, but there's other issues besides that. It's accessibility, affordability. There's a negative stigma sometimes with certain types of treatments and things like that, and especially in children. I mean, children can be very, very mean and bully and things like that. And so, we're trying to provide, we're not saying we want to replace something else or anything like that. We want to be complementary. If we can be helpful, that's our goal. If we want to be the right fit, so we allow people to test the application. It's free to start for 14 days, and you should know if there's going to be some sort of a result. And beyond that, it's very affordable. It's a monthly fee. It's the cost of Netflix, and this is more for health. And so we want to, again, keep it accessible and affordable for the greater population.
And especially because we know that hearing impairment, especially, now, like you mentioned, with earbuds constantly in our ears and all of these loud sounds, we need to be careful and protect our hearing. I'm thinking about my dad. As soon as I met you, I was like, Dad, download this app, because my dad will not admit that he has a hearing impairment, presbycusis, which is like hearing loss because of old age. He would kill me if he knew I was talking about him on this podcast right now. But I keep saying like, he does not hear us. And I talk with my stepmom all the time, and she's like, I know. She's like, he has definitely hearing loss. And so I'm trying to get him on board because he really needs to exercise his hearing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and sort of some of the backstory actually around why I'm starting this company with my co-founder and why we built this is, my grandfather was actually in the Air Force. He was a hydraulics engineer, so very highly specialized, working on jets. Then he worked at a major airline doing the same type of work, hydraulics, on the planes. And he worked around heavy machinery his whole life. Never wore I don't remember him ever wearing protection. I'm sure he did when he was near the jets when he was younger, but how good was that protection back in the 50s?
Right.
And he never wanted to buy hearing aids. Proud man, military guy, and all of that good stuff that you hear about. And I watched it all happen right in front of me. The isolation, the depression, the cognitive impairment, and then he eventually passed from dementia. And I watched that entire cycle, being one of his caretakers as well. And so although we can't help him, I do think that there's a lot of people that we can affect. And so if we can make that type of impact, or any type of impact for anyone, that's really our goal, and why we want to make it available this way.
And you mentioned, was it 10 decibels of gains? Was that what the number was? Do you have any information about, people exceeding that, or is that like kind of the limit, or like how much does this type of therapy, what's the potential, I should say? So
the potential is, of course, different for everyone. Right. We like to think of it as like a diet or exercise. Some diets work for certain people, some exercise works for others. Luckily, over 70% of the people that we worked with had a 10 dB or more gain. So others had, 8 dB gain. Others had 5. Others had 20. Some had 15, 30. We saw up to 35, 36 dB gain, I think.
Wow.
In some folks, not within 2 weeks, but within a month and things like that. And so it's been incredible. I mean, it's just an amazing technology. I can't take credit for it. It's my co-founder. He is the inventor of our technology. And when, I'm the product guy and doing the business side of things and bringing his science and tech into a product that people can use. And so it's been an incredible experience, just like listening to feedback from people. We had a gentleman who 74 years old, uses hearing aids. And his wife actually emailed us and said he was woken up by thunder and lightning for the first time in over a decade.
Oh,
in over a decade.
wow.
And just being able to hear that again, I mean, maybe being woken up isn't the best thing, but just to be able to hear that again was an amazing feeling for both of them. He could hear the birds in his yard, in his backyard again, and forgot that he even missed them. I mean, it's stories like that. I mean, I get goosebumps talking about it, but it's just an incredible time. And again, like I said, kudos to my co-founder on being able to bring this to the market.
Yeah, and it's just so exciting to think about what the potential of technology has to do with things that we thought before were not fixable, right? Or untreatable. And so it's just interesting to think about what technology can really do. And also how it can be sort of pervasive. It used to be like we had these clinical trials and it would take, 10 years to get something on the market. And even if it was on the market, maybe it was a medical device that you would have to go to a doctor to see. Like now we have smartphones that we can download an app and we can, have access to this really amazing technology. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, these cell phones are incredibly powerful. They're going, they're powering most of our lives, most people out here at least. And so, and I'm looking forward to so much great innovation that's going on in health, not just in diagnostics, but in therapies and treatments. And as we learn more about, the brain and neuroscience and different ways that we can, use different types of stimulation to make an effect, it's just a very exciting time. And there's a lot going on in LA, especially when it comes to health. So very, very excited.
Absolutely. We're in the mecca of health technologies. We were the event we met at was at a biohackers event, which is, if you guys don't know what biohacking is, it's essentially using technology to, I guess, support health and wellness. And so it's like all these biohackers know all these really cool, hacks essentially in using technology to help improve your health and wellness. And so it's like definitely LA is the place to be for biohacking and like health and wellness things.
Absolutely. And I think, there's been an incredible shift in just the entire medical, more so in the health and wellness industry, where people are trying to take their health into their own hands and be more preventative rather than treating disease. I mean, we know how expensive treating something is. If we can just get ahead of that and just think about what we're putting into our bodies, how we're treating our bodies, not bodies and mind, of course. And I think, we'll be in a much better place and we'll be happier and healthier and have better outcomes and better longevity in general.
Well, and speaking of preventative, that's actually within our scope of practice as speech-language pathologist. That's our duty to help prevent hearing impairment if we can. And we know from, of course, noises during workplace environments, and there's a lot of different things that we can do to protect our hearing. And this, I feel like, could just be another addition to an SLP's toolkit to help, support the clients that they're working with.
Oh, absolutely. We think that we could be very complementary in that way. Our goal is also not just to strengthen or try to improve hearing, but also to protect it. There's a lot of studies besides our own that show that low-level stimulation, like the type that we're doing, can also protect your hearing as well.
Love that. Love that. Can this be used with children? Is that something that you guys have ever done or would recommend?
We haven't worked. None of our trials were with children. We actually did all of our clinical trials with people between the ages of 18 and 80. We did not see a difference in efficacy across the age spectrum, which is very promising and very interesting. We have not tested it necessarily in a clinical setting with children. However, we are supported by Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. We are looking to do additional studies with pediatrics. We do have people under the age of 18 that are using our technology and are getting the effects. So we do have that feedback for sure. It
feels like something that we need to encourage all of our teenagers to do, right? The ones that are listening to music too loud, can we perhaps combat some of that potential hearing impairment with audio cardio at least?
Potentially, absolutely. We even with audio cardio, our assessment and our sound therapy is one piece of it, but we made audio cardio into actually a music player so that it's easier to digest the therapy, if you will. We use music as water. You take your vitamins with water or without water. So we allow individuals to connect Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube and import their playlist so they can listen to music over the sound therapy. And because it's inaudible or barely audible, it won't ruin the experience. If it does, again, that means your hearing is changing and you should go back. You should be very happy when it does that, because that means your hearing is changing and you should go back and reassess your hearing for a new sound therapy level.
Amazing. I just love that. I'm really excited. I hope that happens to me. I hope that after
people can listen to this podcast too, actually. They could listen to this podcast while getting their audio cardio sound therapy.
I love it. So for those interested, where can people find audio cardio?
So audio cardio is available in the Apple App Store today, and in about a week, it will be available on Android as well. And so we're really excited to release that. Just working out some few last minute items and making sure everything's on the up and up before we release the Android, and it'll be available to download. Anyone can try for 14 days, as I mentioned. And from then, you should be able to know if it's worth your time and your money, of course.
I love that. And we'll definitely link to the app in the show notes. So definitely check out the show notes. Chris, thank you so much for coming today. It was such a great honor to interview you and to hear about all of the cool technology that you guys are doing. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure, and look forward to interacting more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for Talking with Tech. I'm Rachel Madel, joined by Chris Ellis. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Hi, I'm Mei Ling Chan.
And I'm Martin Sibley.
And we are the hosts of the Exceptional Leaders Podcast, where we spotlight high-profile topics and amazing people who are changing the worldview on disability.
Even though we are oceans apart, we are bringing people from all over the world together to discuss inclusion, advocacy, accessibility, and real-life journeys.
So listen to the Exceptional Leaders Podcast to hear the voices and stories from amazing changemakers and be inspired to make a real difference in the world.
You're listening to the Exceptional Podcast Network.